Boom, 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 boom. A side, B side. What side are you on?
Welcome back. It's A Side, B Side podcast. What's going on, Adam?
Not too much, Brooke. Just enjoying the sun that's finally out here in Minnesota. So it feels like perhaps spring may be on its way.
I know it's finally nice here. Took the dogs out. They didn't want to come back in. And I was like, hey, we got to go. We got things to do, but I'll let you back out. So I think we're going to go back out, maybe go on a little bit of a walk a little bit later because it is gorgeous. Hopefully, no more cold weather, but
Yeah, we'll
not going to.
probably have one week in March.
Yeah.
There's always that one.
Real fast. This week, watched a couple of things. Of course, caught up on old TV shows. Like one of my favorite shows is The Rookie, which is a great TV show. I love it. It's Nathan Fillion. With if you watched Castle, or if you watched Buffy, or if you've watched, he was on I can't remember which soap opera he was on, but he was on one of the soap operas. I think it was One Life to Live. You know who he is. The Rookie is great. So I caught up on that. I was behind on that, and then caught up on The Resident, which I love. Medical shows, cop shows. I don't know why we all love them, but we do. And then on Netflix, there's a TV show. It's a reality show. It's a real family, and they have a funeral home in Memphis, and it's called Buried by the Bernards. Really entertaining. The good thing is, even though it is a funeral home, and yes, you will see people, you don't see their faces. You don't see the faces of anybody that's a client of theirs. But it's more about the behind the scenes. But because it is a funeral home, they do show, a funeral or two. Or you might see in the background or something as they get ready for a funeral. But like I said, you don't see the face of that client. So that's a good thing. But the family themselves are hilarious. So that's really pretty entertaining. And then Rosamund Pike has a new movie on Netflix called I Care a Lot. Awesome.
That got nominated for some Golden Globes, didn't it?
It should have, because it's amazing.
Yeah, I think I saw that. But I have not seen the show yet, but I think I saw it got nominated. I've loved her ever since Pride and Prejudice way back when. So.
And then, of course, she was in Gone Girl, if you saw that. And then also Peter Dinklage is in it. And we know I really like Peter Dinklage. So that was a plus as well.
How can you not like Peter Dinklage?
I have a crush on Peter Dinklage.
He's pretty awesome.
He's ever since Nip Tuck, I've liked Peter Dinklage. So
have you ever seen The Station Agent?
No.
So it's an older one. It's probably 10, 15 years ago, but he stars in it. And it's this sort of like dramedy comedy about this guy who's a loner, and eventually these people try to become friends with him, and it's incredibly well done. I think it's got to be at least 10 years old. But that was the first time I saw him. No, 2003. Okay, so way older than even that. But yeah, it was the first movie I saw him in, and it was just really well done. Bobby Cannavale, who is one of those guys that you would totally recognize when you see him, is in it as well. But it's about a quiet, withdrawn, unmarried man with dwarfism who loves railroads. So I highly recommend it. I don't want to go off tangent, but it's very, very good.
I will have to check into that. I like Bobby Cannavale. He's in a new movie on HBO Max with Melissa McCarthy, and then he's actually going to be in another movie that's coming out on Netflix that has Melissa McCarthy, Octavia Spencer, and I can't remember who else is going to be in it. I just saw the trailer today, but it looks really good.
Yeah, he's underrated. I think he's always he's not quite that guy from that thing because people do know his name, but he's always impressive when he's in a film.
He was really good on Nurse Jackie when he was on that.
Yeah, I only watched one or two episodes of that, but I heard that people who got really into it enjoyed it.
It's really good. What is the name of this upcoming? I'm trying to find it really fast, but Thunder Force is the new movie that's got Octavia Spencer and Melissa McCarthy, Bobby Cannavale, and also Jason Bateman was the name I was trying to remember. And it looks so stupid but hilarious. I cannot wait. And I think it's April 9th that it comes out.
Yeah, that's a lot of funny people.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. And so Octavia Spencer and Melissa McCarthy are superheroes.
Nice. with the name like Thunder Force, it kind of had to be, right?
Right. And then Bobby is the bad guy. And I guess Jason Bateman is maybe a bad guy. He's got claw hands in this, so I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like claw hands would make you a bad guy.
So anyway, all right. So that's all I watched this week. Really just catching up on shows and then those 2 new ones. What about you?
I rewatched WandaVision a couple times, and then this week has just been crazy busy with work, and I have been barely watching any TV, which is super strange.
Oh, wow. All right. All right. So this is episode number 34, which means you get to go first. Have you ever thought to yourself, man, I sure would like to make a podcast. I've got so much to say about blank. Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor, you really should. It is the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's absolutely free. All right, I'm going to tell you why it's so easy. Okay, so with Anchor, there's creation tools that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others. And you can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Trust me, I'm so excited about this. You can be too. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started.
So it is time for the A-side. And it's funny, Brooke, that you mentioned that everybody loves medical dramas. Because that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today. So we think of these big, like epic historical showdowns, right? You know, like King Kong versus Godzilla, or Ali Frazier, or even Rocky versus Apollo in the Rocky movies, or the Karate Kid versus Sweep the Leg Johnny. You've got these one-on-one battles that are epic moments that everybody remembers. Mm-hmm. And one that I remember from my childhood actually involved 2 television shows. So I think I've mentioned before, Brooke, that my dad had this subscription to Entertainment Weekly. Mm-hmm. And Entertainment Weekly would come every week, as its name suggests, and I would grab it out of the mailbox or off the mail pile and read it cover to cover. Every single article I could, pretty much from like 1990 to 2003. And I remember the hype that was coming into the fall season of 1994. So as you remember, this was before streaming days. This was before cable was doing a lot of original content. Basically, the new shows that were coming to the networks were the biggest thing and were talked about and hyped all summer long. And I remember reading article after article about the coming battle of 1994 on Thursday nights between 2 brand new medical dramas, ER and Chicago Hope. I remember that we had to decide as a family how we were going to try to watch both. Luckily, we had cable upstairs and downstairs, so we could watch one and then record the other one on our VCR, which is a very old statement, and then rewatch it afterwards. And these were 2 huge prospects. Like the comparison would be to be like the number 1 and 2 picks of the NFL draft. Like these were blue blood, had everything going for them. ER was written by Michael Crichton, who's coming off the huge hit of Jurassic Park. Mm-hmm. David E. Kelley from LA Law and a billion other things, including at the time, Picket Fences, which had just won Best Drama Emmy, was the writer, director, and creator of Chicago Hope. They both had amazing casts. If you think about the original ER cast, now ER was on for 15 seasons, right? Mm-hmm. So they had like 100 people on that show. But the original, first season, you had Anthony Edwards, Goose from Top Gun, who was also on Northern Exposure. Mm-hmm. You had George Clooney, who, when I was going back and doing research for this, I wanted to find period articles that talked about them at the same time, like right before they came out or right after. So I found 3 articles from 1994. One of which referred to George Clooney it was like George Clooney from Sisters, because he had like a minor role on that show. And it said that Anthony Edwards was probably going to be the big star out of the entire group. But you had Noah Wiley, Eric LaSalle was there the first season, Sherry Stringfield, and Juliana Margulies, who was the nurse. Everyone else was a doctor. Over on Chicago Hope, you had Adam Arkin and I always say his name, Mandy Patinkin. Yeah, who were really kind of the main two, but you also had Hector Elizondo. The show would go on to add people like Thomas Gibson and Mark Harmon and Rocky Carroll and Christy Lottie, who would go on to win an Emmy for her role. So you had Vondi Curtis Hall was on there for a long time after the first season. So you had just amazing casts. You had amazing writers, and the networks decided to put them up against each other at 9 p.m. on Thursday night. So not only were these two brand new series, which potentially have all the ingredients to be big hits, going to premiere the fall, they were going to do so right up against each other. Now, ER has the benefit of being on Thursday night, which is must-see TV, back when Seinfeld is in its prime. And you also had another freshman show that started in 1994 called Friends, which if we have time, when we get back, I will read you what one of the critics writes about Friends, because looking back, 26 years, it's interesting to see what people thought about a show that everyone knows now before it even aired. So I picked up 3 different articles. The first one is from the Chicago Tribune from September 18th of 1994 by Ken Parrish Perkins, their television critic. And he is debating whether or not they're going to actually go head to head, because they were both scheduled to start at 9 p.m. on Thursdays, as I mentioned. He says ER is going to have a bigger lead in, and that will probably mean that they get better ratings, even though in his mind, Chicago Hope was going to be the better television show. He writes that Kelly, David E. Kelly, the creator and writer of Chicago Hope, is one of TV's most irreverent and thoughtful writer-producers. He's credited with LA Law and the creator of Picket Fences. And those who have seen Picket Fences, he writes, should have a good idea about what Hope is going to offer. Big, big drama, moral crisis, and probably some emotional guilt trips. He sets up Chicago Hopes as more of a serious, character-driven type of drama, whereas ER is going to be fast-paced, frenetic, people coming and going, and the focus is more going to be on each patient and trying to keep them alive, whereas in Chicago Hope, it's about the doctors and what they're doing. He points out that there was actually some confusion because Crichton wrote the script originally for ER in 1978.
Oh, wow.
So he wrote it way back then, and he had been shopping it for like 16 years. The different studios, he just tried to make it into a movie. He wanted to do a TV show. It was like, no, but everyone was like, that's too much. There's too much going on. There's not enough about the characters. It's never going to work. So he kept the pilot script for 16 years and barely updated it, changed some of the, make it a little bit more topical, but the entire script, other than updating some of the diversity of the cast. When it was originally written in 1978, it was 4 white males, which 1978, 1994, they updated the cast. It was a lot more diverse, and I think that improved some of the overall storyline as well, because it seemed more like some place that you could be, like a real ER that you could go to. So he says it was likely going to be ER that wins, but Chicago Hope's going to get all the awards. In another article in the well-acclaimed Deseret News, which is out of Arizona, I believe. This was from September 22nd, 1994. Scott Pierce, their television editor, said, the popular question to ask TV critics these days is, which is better, Chicago Hope or ER? And honestly, this caught me off guard, because how often do you actually hear a critic say this? But he says, and this critic's answer isn't particularly satisfying. I don't know. He says, judging the shows is like comparing apples and oranges. They are so different that comparisons are almost impossible. So yes, they're both hour-long TV dramas that air at 9 p.m. on Thursday night. But ER, again, is fast-paced. It is a wham bam hour, and is using his words, which patients speed through the emergency room like they were on the Indianapolis Speedway. Chicago Hope, on the other hand, focuses again on the lives of the staffers. The characters are strong and fascinating. So the theme we've heard from both of these in the moment was that everybody's like, hey, ER is like engrossing and it goes fast, and Chicago Hope is more about the characters. So then, in my favorite article that I found, and this one I don't know if this is, you know, those ghost memories where like you think you remember something, but it may just because it's a good story, or somebody's told you the story. Like we all hear stories about when we were little kids and then we did something and now we remember that, but do we remember it because we remembered it because we remember it because we were told? I feel when I found this article from Entertainment Weekly from September 1994 that I absolutely had read this article because it was the most unique analysis of ER and Chicago Hope that I had heard, because what they actually did was they went to two doctors. So both Chicago Hope and ER take place in Chicago. So they went to Entertainment Weekly asked two Windy City physicians, Children's Memorial Pediatrics resident Matt McKeever and Northwestern Memorial internal medicine resident Mark Weiner, to analyze the shows. And so their general diagnosis, Chicago Hope is bad medicine, while ER is exactly what the doctor ordered. Werner said that they both felt that ER was extremely lifelike and was the closest thing they had seen on television to what being a doctor is really like. He was quoted as saying they would turn to each other at one point in the show and say, "This is actually real." And we kind of were blown away. McKeever then would go on to say that Chicago Hope was a little bit more television doctor. You saw the same guys doing brain surgery, heart surgery, and pediatric heart transplant surgery. And then in a very 80s reference, Weiner says, you almost expected Buckaroo Banzai to come in and help and say, I got to take out your brain tumor and I'm opening up for Guns N' Roses later. So it was an interesting kind of breakdown to see the two of them, or to read the two of them who are in the field. And this is 26 years ago, looking at something and saying, this is much closer to reality. And this one is much more fantasy. So how did this turn out? We've got all this build up, these amazing casts. We've got creators and writers that have huge success in the past and would go on to each have tons of success in the future. Well, they only went up against each other for 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, CBS cried uncle and moved Chicago Hope to a different night. Chicago Hope would actually bounce around to 4 different time slots and different nights throughout its 6-year run. Whereas ER would go on to within a year, be the #1 TV show in the country and last for 15 seasons with a total of 331 total episodes, which, did not know, Michael Crichton wrote every single episode.
Oh, wow.
Like, I'm sure he had help, because that's a lot. But like, usually you see creators create a show and they leave after a while. Like Kelly, he left after the second season of Chicago Hope and then came back for the last season, where they basically just fired everybody and brought in a whole new, kind of style to try to reboot the show. But yeah, Crichton was around for all 331 episodes. It would go on to have, I'm trying to find the number, an extraordinarily large amount of award nominations. It would even win Best Drama at one point. And there is a Elle article that I found that I'm going to send Brooke. I'll send you all the links so we can put them in the social medias and stuff if people want to go down, who broke down some of the things that happened with ER, and they said all of the shows, ER had the most Emmy nominations ever. It had 124 Emmy nominations across 15 seasons, and it won 22 of them, including the Outstanding Drama in season 2 and Best Supporting Actress award for Juliana Margulies in season 1. Now, I had totally forgot about the pilot episode and what happens at the end. And I don't know if we should be worried about spoiler alerts in 26 years down the road.
I think we're beyond spoiler alerts.
Okay. I mean, so in the first episode, the character played by Juliana Margulies attempts suicide at the end of the episode. So burnt out, so overwhelmed that they just can't go on. Has been going through some relationship issues, and originally in the original script, that character passes away in the first episode. Except during testing, audiences liked her character so much that they decided to keep her around for the full season, and then something like 200 some episodes after that. She would go on to win an Emmy for that role, which without that test audience would have only lasted one episode.
That's interesting.
So it's pretty amazing what the audience could do. Yeah. So in the great battle of 1994 medical dramas, ER was clearly the winner. It was not quite a knockout because Chicago Hope did last for, I think, 6 seasons and had quite a few awards, both Patinkin and Arkin, and had an amazing cast of people come through there. I mean, somebody like Peter Berg, who was just a supporting actor on the show, has now gone on to be a huge director. Rocky Carroll, Mark Harmon, and Lauren Holly, who was in the I think the last season, maybe the last season and a half, all would immediately turn around and start doing NCIS the year after Chicago Hope was canceled. So it had a lot of success. So I wouldn't say it was a first round knockout, but definitely by the time they got to the 4th or 5th round, Chicago Hope was looking pretty beat, and somebody was probably going to throw in the towel. So how's that for a overly long boxing metaphor?
Of the two, which do you prefer?
Of the two, I could never get into Chicago Hope because it was so, and granted, I was a 13-year-old kid when it came out, but it was very much more character driven, lots of talking, lots of discussing things, not a lot of action. ER was nonstop, like pixie stick, just drinking pixie sticks left and right and flying, and the characters. I remember being so distraught on so many episodes that at one point, I believe my parents told me I couldn't watch it anymore because I was getting so upset. So I would say for me, it was definitely ER. I think as an adult, it would be interesting to go back and watch Chicago Hope again, because I think there's a lot of nuance and character and story and detail that, as a 13-year-old kid, I just didn't see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that is the A side.
All right. Well, this week for the B side, we have to give thanks to our executive producer, my mom, again, because, she loves to give me the stories. I saw this the other day. So thanks, executive producer, Mom, for this one. This is the story, switching gears completely from saving lives to taking them.
Yeah, we cover all sides of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. This is the story of the Michael Reese murder. So Cindy K. Henderson was a widow after her first husband died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. She was sad, lonely, and then Michael came along. Cindy and Michael Earl Reese, both 40 at the time, married in 2009 and lived a really peaceful, happy, normal, maybe some would say averaging, ordinary, boring life in Morris, Alabama. Boring in that, nothing out of the ordinary happened to them. Mm-hmm. They regularly attended the local Sardis Baptist Church together, where Cindy was also the head of music ministry. But things took a massive shift after about 5 years of marriage when Jeffrey Brown walked on the scene. In 2013, Jeffrey David Brown, 36 years old, became senior pastor at the church. Church officials thought that bringing in someone younger to lead the church would bring in more people. That happens from time to time. Churches they age as the congregation gets older, and new people, the kids are grown and they leave with their families. It happens all the time.
Yeah, it's very cyclical.
So they're like, let's bring in somebody younger. Maybe that'll attract more people, and we'll have more people, butts and seats, if you will. So throughout 2014, the Brown family, yes, Jeffrey David Brown was married, and the Reese families became close friends. Why not? I mean, she's head of music ministry. Her husband is a regular at church. He's the pastor. Of course, the pastor, you know, strikes up a friendship with this husband and wife, he and his wife, you know.
Yeah, you're co-workers. You spend a lot of time together. Got a lot in common.
Right. The Reeses, Cindy and Michael, even babysat Jeffrey and his wife's children from time to time. Now, even though Cindy and Jeffrey were married to different people, they started spending, I guess, because they were spending a lot of time together, they kind of became enamored with each other. And, well, one thing, enamorous actions, I guess. I don't flirt. Well, how would you say that? It went from enamored to flirtatious to a full-blown affair.
Right. So they went from thinking about it, teasing about it, to actually
to doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The depth of that affair has been hotly debated, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. So Cindy and Jeffrey, like I said, they go from admiring each other and flirting, a little harmless flirting, to Well, they got so hot and heavy that they even started sharing a bank account, a savings account. Her name was on the title to his vehicle and a lease to an apartment.
Dang. That's like more than some actual relationships I know of.
Right.
More this commingling of assets.
Deep. This was intense. She also let him use her credit, but she claimed that she never paid any bills connected to the car or the apartment. That it was just in name only. Doesn't matter. You still allowed somebody to use your name. That's pretty intimate.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, when you're talking about credit ratings and putting your trust in them and co-signing and stuff. I mean, those are big steps.
So Cindy said the affair started in the spring of 2014 and it lasted until the fall of 2014 when she and Michael went on a trip to Disney World and reconnected. Michael, her husband. Jeffrey called Cindy constantly. She said, Jeff wouldn't leave me alone and let me enjoy my vacation. This is what she said during testimony. Cindy ended the physical aspect of the affair with Jeffrey after that trip, but they continued to communicate on a daily basis. Look, married or not, affair, okay. Even when you're not married to someone, if you're just dating someone and you stop the physical aspect, if you continue to talk to them every day, it's not good. So I can't imagine how much worse it would be for an affair.
Yeah, that's really hard to have that emotional connection still when it's supposed to not be a thing.
Right, because if you've ever tried to be friends with an ex, it takes some time. So to immediately cut off an affair, which is already like hyper emotional, and think, oh yeah, we can be friends. We just talk every day. No, I don't buy it. I don't buy it personally.
You add in, oh, we're coworkers. Right. So that's just adding another layer to the onion.
So at some point during the course of their relationship, church leaders found out about Cindy and Jeffrey's affair. It was reported on NBC Dateline that the two were seen having sex in a car in a parking ramp. So Jeffrey agreed to step down to keep the scandalous affair from getting out. I don't know if Michael, Cindy's husband, ever found out about the affair. I'm going to assume that Jeffrey's wife had to have some inclination, because why would her husband have to step down from being the head pastor?
Yeah, that'd be an awkward conversation.
Yeah. So on February 18th of 2015, Cindy and Jeffrey went to lunch so that she could help him with his divorce. Another reason why I feel like the wife found out about the affair, because divorce.
Pretty good sign there.
So Cindy herself never discussed divorcing Michael. You know, there was that period of time where they had grown apart, and then she said they had gone to Disney World and reconnected, and that's why she broke off things with Jeffrey.
Mhm.
But Jeffrey, on the other hand, was getting a divorce. After her lunch with Jeffrey, she met up with Michael, and the couple went to her mother's house, then to church, and then to Milo's. So I had to look up what Milo's is, and it's a popular hamburger spot in Morris, Alabama, known for its signature sauce and sweet tea.
Hmm.
I want to try this Milo's.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the same Milo's where you can buy the sweet tea in the store.
I mean, if it's that, if their sweet tea is that famous that it's being distributed, that's impressive.
I mean, they're known for their sweet tea, and then there is the Milo sweet tea. So I'm just wondering if it's the same. I don't
I
know.
mean, it'd be weird if it wasn't.
That's true. So they head over to Milo's, they grab some food to go, and then they head home. Well, on the way home, Cindy told Michael that she needed to grab some groceries. So she dropped Michael off. She helps him take the food inside. Then she turns right around. She heads right back out. I think we've all done this. We're like, oh man, I forgot to do this. Like I did this just now. Like I was headed home and I was like, man, I forgot to get gas. So I'm going to have to head back out. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
So
And then, like the gas thing, if you don't do it, then you forget it the next morning and then you're running late and you're like, ah.
Exactly. So she drops him off. She helps him with the food inside. And then she turns around, heads back out to Piggly Wiggly to get some groceries. She returns to the house about 8:00. And when she returned, she had gotten some orange juice and some ham. I don't know the urgency of orange juice and ham, but maybe she wanted them for breakfast. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot in my fridge, but I do have both of those things.
I don't have ham. I have turkey. So when she returned home, she found that the house, when she walked in, she found the house had been ransacked. A coffee table had been flipped and there was just stuff everywhere. And she didn't know what happened. And not wanting to risk interrupting an intruder, she grabs the house phone and she heads back outside and she calls 911. When the police arrive, they find the body of Michael Reese, who'd been shot in the back of the head. Michael was on the floor in the kitchen in the rear of the home next to an open back door. Initially, investigators thought that Michael had disrupted the intruders and that they killed him. But then they started to look around and look into the scene some more, and they found no signs of forced entry and nothing appeared to be stolen. If there's intruders, they're breaking in a door some kind of way and something would be missing, right?
Right. You don't just break in a door or shoot somebody unless you're a hitman like our last guy.
Right, like the Iceman. Exactly.
Like the Iceman, yeah.
Investigators also noted that it was an odd time of evening for a break-in and that the scene appeared to be staged. Police found a bag that contained the groceries, the orange juice and the ham. And they also noticed that the food had not been eaten, the food that they had picked up from Milo's, which they said was a significant clue because it would mean that it happened immediately after they had gotten home. So if she left immediately and he didn't even have time to eat the food, she would have either been there when the intruders were there, or police told the media that because of all of the evidence, that it was a good possibility that Michael knew his attacker. Well, soon investigators learned about Cindy's affair with Jeffrey. On the day of Michael's death and the day after, cell phone records show that Cindy and Jeffrey had spoken multiple times. And when I say multiple, I'm talking double digits. And then we have the 911 tapes. Because, of course, when you call 911, what people don't realize about 911, it doesn't start recording when you call, like when they answer. It starts recording as soon as you dial.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So the 911 tapes reveal that Cindy was actually talking to another person when her home line connected. She was heard telling the other person on the phone, she was heard telling the other person her phone was about to die. Again, apparently, from the moment you dial, that's when it starts recording. And
that's crazy.
It's something you need to know if you're going to commit a crime, I guess. I don't know. And call 911 while you're committing it. I don't know, but
Yeah.
whatever.
That's just a bit like from a technical standpoint, I would have had no idea that was even possible.
I didn't either, but that's how they were able to catch this conversation because it happened before the operator picked up.
That's impressive.
Now, I don't know if that's just in Morris, Alabama, or I'm assuming that's all 911 calls.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Oh.
So according
maybe Morris, Alabama is just ahead of the game.
Maybe so. According to the prosecution and cell phone records, GPS, and tower pings, it showed that she was talking to Jeffrey. I'm so shocked. No.
Something is afoot.
She was talking to Jeffrey the day that her husband was murdered as she's calling 911.
After their affair is over.
Right. So police became pretty certain that Cindy was responsible for her husband's death, and she did not act alone. They believe that they plotted to kill Michael so that they could be together. Chief Deputy Randy Christian, who worked the case, said in March of 2015, Cindy and Jeffrey were out on a lunch date less than a month after Michael had been murdered. I mean, they're just all out in the open flaunting that they're together. Yeah. He's in the middle of a divorce. Her husband. Yeah, right. Her husband's just murdered. He's divorced. Everybody knows they had an affair. I mean, who cares? He's gone. She's gone.
Yeah. Brazen.
When police arrested them for the murder of Michael Earl Reese, they both were held on a $100,000 bond. Both Jeffrey and Cindy were indicted. I should note that the pastor, he's nuts because now she has 2 dead husbands.
Yeah.
She had to know about the first. I mean, he had to have found out about the first one, right? You would think.
Yeah, you'd think. I don't know if you want to be up next in that list.
And then you help her kill this one. What do you think's going to happen 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now when she's tired of you? I mean, I don't foresee happily ever after. This ain't a romance novel, so.
No, this would be a very strange romance novel.
I'm just saying, if they hadn't been caught, I would bet money that he would have been next.
Well, and also maybe they got to go back and look at her first husband's death.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, as tends to happen, when you're arrested together, the couple broke up and they presented evidence against each other. I can't believe their relationship wasn't strong enough to withstand murder and incarceration.
I love how they both turned. It wasn't like one was just like dewy-eyed in love and like, no, I'll never turn on him. The other one's like, hey, let me write it all down. They were both like, let me tell you a story.
Right. Let me tell you, I got a secret. So in August of 2016, right before his murder trial was set to start, Jeffrey struck a deal with prosecutors. He pled guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter and agreed to a 20-year prison sentence. And he agreed to testify against Cindy when she went to court. In his testimony, he said that Cindy never discussed divorcing Michael because she always planned on getting rid of him entirely. On several different occasions, she talked about either shooting him or poisoning him and then pleading insanity if she were ever to be charged in his death. In December of 2016, during Cindy's trial, the prosecution said that she had broken her wedding vows in a, quote, heinous, horrific, deadly way. The prosecution also said that Cindy had shot her husband when they came back from church, just as Michael was letting the dog in the back door, which is why his body was found by an open door. She then went to the local Piggly Wiggly where she bought the ham and orange juice, and then she met Jeffrey at a gas station to hand over the .38 revolver, which he threw away on the highway. That weapon has never been found.
That's a disturbing thing.
Hopefully it's just
out there on the highway,
buried in some grass, and it's been covered over by the grass growth and it'll never be found.
Yeah.
Jeffrey took the stand and testified that Cindy had often talked about killing Michael, saying things like, "I wish he was gone." Jeffrey said she even asked him to find someone to do it. He told the court that he had approached 2 coworkers. Now, I'm assuming not at the church, because I know most pastors have another job.
Right.
I don't know what his second job was, but I'm going to assume he didn't approach like some church deacons like, "Hey man, you gonna murder somebody?"
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that, that's kind of one of the cardinal rules of a church. You don't kill.
It's like one of those commandments. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's definitely up there.
It's up there, top tier.
Yeah.
He told the court that he had approached 2 coworkers and offered them his car if they would complete the murder. They both declined.
He just tried to Bob Barker him. He's like, "Would you kill this guy for a brand new car?"
He also testified that he and Cindy never had a sexual relationship. Look, I don't know any man that's going to kill another man over a woman unless they're sleeping with her or getting paid. He wasn't getting paid.
So, ipso facto.
You cannot tell me that you got this woman to put you on a lease and help you with a car and an apartment, and y'all weren't sleeping together. You're full of garbage. And also, you divorced your wife and had to step down from church?
Yeah, but wasn't sleeping together.
Right. Lies.
And he just had 2 guys in mind that might do a killing. Like, how good of friends does that have to be? You don't do that to an acquaintance, right?
Where do you work that you're just like, "Oh, I know exactly who I'd ask"? Like, yeah. I can't think of anybody. Like, not that I'm ever planning that, but it's not like I could go to my office and be like, hey, my car. You got me? No, what? What? Come on.
How about that game last night? Would you like to kill someone?
Right. You looking for a truck? I got you. So Cindy, during her trial, stated that she loved her husband and never wanted him to die. She also admitted to her affair with Jeffrey, but her version of events were that Jeffrey became upset and angry when she would not divorce Michael. Cindy claims that it was Jeffrey that shot and killed Michael after hiding in the back of their home and ambushing him. Which, we do have the cell phone records and the ping saying she called him, which would mean he wasn't in the house when the murder was committed. Why would she call him on the cell phone?
It was like, "Oh, I don't want to walk around to the backyard. I'll just call him. Hey, did you shoot him yet?"
Right. No.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
So, my personal opinion, yes, they did plan this together. Yes, she probably did meet him at the gas station and he handled the weapon. They were sleeping together. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind.
Well, yeah, there was reports that people saw them in a parking garage.
Right. And again, he was forced to step down as head pastor. Give me a break. The jury in Cindy's case found her guilty of murder after just 90 minutes of deliberation.
Dang.
Michael's family said that although it wasn't going to bring Michael back, they were pleased with the judgment, but they would never forget the tragic way in which he was taken from them. In January of 2017, not that long ago, Cindy was sentenced to 40 years in prison. In 2019, less than 3 years into her 40-year sentence, Cindy was transferred from Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women to a work release program in Birmingham, Alabama. The center was literally within walking distance to the officers who had investigated her and to the attorney who had prosecuted her, and within a relatively short drive from Michael's family.
Jeez. And work release, and again, my ignorance is showing here. So she was able to be out in the community.
Yeah.
And then come back during the day.
after
Like
murdering
she could go out and work and then come back. She just had to stay at the facility.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like jail.
No. So the transfer unfortunately happened without any prior notification to Michael's family. So when word of her transfer got back to them, of course, backlash ensued, and Cindy ended up being transferred back to Julia Tutwiler Prison. Her first parole consideration will be in 2030. Jeffrey is currently incarcerated at the Stanton Correctional Facility in Elmore, Alabama, and will be eligible for parole in 2023. If denied, he will, of course, have to serve the entirety of his 20-year sentence. Chief Deputy Christian, that we mentioned earlier, said, "I think we all understand matters of the heart and the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of relationships. What we can't understand and will never understand is someone getting so twisted, dark, and lost that they believe cold-blooded murder is the answer. Yet here we are with 3 families ruined because of dark hearts, stupidity, and extreme selfishness." And there you have the case of the Michael Reese murder. Again, I'm with you, and I think we need to look back at her first husband, and I don't know if anybody has done that. I did look to see if that had happened, and I couldn't find any evidence of anybody looking back into her first husband. But,
I mean, because the cause of death, gunshot wound, is the same.
Just self-inflicted.
Right. I will say that buried within all of this is an amazing commercial for Milo's.
Yes.
Milo's. Because the cops, like, one of their main things was like, they brought home Milo's and they did not eat it. There's no way that would have happened if the man was alive. So clearly, Milo's food is so good that you don't wait. You eat it immediately. And that was how they were like, something's up. Meanwhile, Milo's like, yeah, my food's that good.
Well, if the sweet tea is anything to judge it by, it's pretty good.
Yeah. It's impressive. And I love the cops were like, yeah, this food wasn't eaten. This was a crime.
It was still hot when we got there. I really do think it's interesting.
Cops are like, do you think this is evidence, or can I finish this off?
One fry. What's one fry? I do really think it's interesting, like you said, that it starts recording immediately. I am going to do some research here to find out if that is the case.
That's impressive.
I think that's really cool. But I mean, and that's a great way to get busted, people busted, because people are like, shh, they haven't answered yet. Okay. They answered. Hello, I'd like to report a crime, and it's like, well, we have heard you. So.
Well, we all do that thing while it's ringing where we're kind of like prepping ourselves. What conversation it is, like it's a call to the boss, it's a call to anybody. You're kind of like going through what you're going to say. Like, how am I going to start this? I'm going to be like, hey, hi, how are you? Like, what are you going to, like, okay, well, I'm going to say that. So I'm sure they hear a lot of weird things.
Oh, I'm sure. But I think that's really interesting. Yeah. So, but there you have another episode
like the live mic.
Yeah. You got to be careful of those. As somebody in radio, I know you got to watch that hot mic.
Oh, we back in when I was a kid, just to both a live mic thing and a pastor thing. When I was in church and I was in like grade school, we got a brand new lavalier mic and the pastor didn't know how to turn it off. And then while the other pastor was giving the sermon, he went to the bathroom.
Oh no!
And so over the PA system, we heard the toilet flush.
Oh, at least that was all. At least that's all you heard. Just the flush.
Yeah. I just remember the toilet flush. I was like, wait a second.
Oof. Because that could have been real bad. Real bad.
Yeah. When you're wearing a mic, you got to be careful. And also when you're calling 911.
That's true. But there you have another episode of A-Side, B-Side podcast. Ways that you can support the show. We have a website that has merchandise. Of course, you can head on over there. It's A-Side, B-Side podcast.square.site. We've got t-shirts, sweatshirts. I know it's getting warmer, but I'm a sweatshirt person year round. So I love the sweatshirts. We have masks. Yes, the vaccine is out. Woohoo, getting those soon, but we are still going to be wearing masks. Not every place is Texas and Mississippi and Florida. So we are still wearing masks. So we do have those on our website as well. We have blankets, we have puzzles, we've got all kinds of goodies.
I mean, even in those states, there are like places that are saying you still got to wear a mask.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Like Alamo Draft. Yeah, there are some schools and different businesses. So it's, you know, even if the state says you don't have to wear, a private business can still say in here you have to.
That's true. Private. Sorry.
And that has everybody up in arms.
Yeah. Apparently she said, wear your mask as well. That was, this time it was my dog and not yours.
No, mine is, she's like completely zonked out. We took a really long walk and then we're on the deck watching the cars for about half an hour before all this. So she had lots of stimuli.
Let's see. Okay. So website. Also, you can buy us a coffee. It's buymeacoffee.com/A-side-B-side-pod. All money goes towards promotion, production of the podcast and coffee. For real. It does. I do get coffee because I edit and do the website and all that. And also, you can give us a rating or review on Apple. That really does help us a lot. And we thank you if you have already done so. We really appreciate it. We thank everybody that is on this journey with us each and every week. Also, we've talked about this before, especially for the ladies. Trust your guts because they might be nuts. Seriously. It's on a shirt, by the way. Or another way you can say it is bad vibes saves lives. So if you've got a bad feeling, trust your gut because your gut's not going to lie to you. All right. I think that's all. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Brooke.
As always, thank you for listening to A-Side, B-Side podcast. If you enjoy the show, please, if you don't mind, head on over to Apple and leave us a rating or a review. And if you'd like to continue to support the podcast, you can do so by heading on over to Patreon, or you can buy us a coffee, as well as buying merch on our website, asidebsidepodcast.square.site. From Adam and I at A-Side, B-Side podcast, please remember to wear your mask, social distance if you're around people that don't live in your household, and just be safe and happy. Thanks again from us here at A-Side, B-Side podcast.